For almost a decade, I've been trying to figure out if I experience this thing that everyone is talking about, ASMR, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. It's described as brain tingles, accompanied by a deeply relaxing feeling. Some people get it watching YouTube videos of people tapping acrylic nails on a keyboard. Others get it listening to podcasts of whispered bedtime stories. But many folks first experience ASMR long before they have the terminology to describe it.
My first experience of ASMR was when I was just a child. My aunt came to visit, and we were in my room playing with my American Girl dolls. There was a beautiful ray of sunlight shining across the room, and we sat on the floor, brushing one of the doll's hair. She was adjusting its clothing just so, and I could hear every sound.
I first experienced ASMR in school when we would be taking a test or working on something at my desk and my teacher would be typing in the background. I just always thought that was so soothing and I just loved the sound.
That was ASMR artists M and Katie. I'm Anita Rao, and this is Embodied, our show tackling sex, relationships, and your health. Hey, it's Anita, and I have a super fun invitation for y'all before we get rolling on this podcast. You can come hang out with me and the Embodied team in person on Saturday, April 20th. If you're in and around Durham, North Carolina, save your seat for an evening variety show at Motorcoat Music Hall. It's all about family secrets. Through comedy, storytelling, dance, and music, 4 performers are going to explore the things we conceal from our loved ones and how they shape us for generations to come. Find the link to grab your ticket in the show notes for this episode, and I can't wait to see you there. Want relationship advice from one of the leading experts in the fields of couples therapy? Then Reimagining Love is for you. Hosted by Dr. Alexandra Solomon, a clinical psychologist, couples therapist, professor, and award-winning author, Reimagining Love is your destination for profound, enlightening discussions about love, family, intimacy, and everything in between. It's a podcast that gives us the opportunity to reimagine ourselves, our relationships, and our world. On the show, Dr. Alexandra gives in-depth, research-backed takes on topics like dating, jealousy, communication, commitment, and personal growth. She features notable guests from the worlds of therapy, academia, and pop culture, such as Esther Perel, Susan Cain, Nick Viall, Emily Nagoski, and Lori Gottlieb. Find Reimagining Love wherever you get your podcasts.
Every week on Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso, I invite an artist, writer, or politician to come to the table and speak from the heart in ways you probably haven't heard from them before. Some of my favorites are with Tom Hanks, Questlove, and Cate Blanchett. In recent weeks, I talked to actor Dan Levy, director Ava DuVernay, and the editor of The New Yorker, David Remnick. You can listen to Talk Easy on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
ASMR content has exploded in the past decade. It's now one of the most searched terms on YouTube, and something many folks say helped them make it through the pandemic. Not everyone experiences ASMR, but for those who do, the telltale sensations often emerge long before they have the terminology to describe them. That was the case for physiologist Craig Harris Richard.
I was one of those kids who just didn't like falling asleep, didn't like going to bed at night. And my mother would try saying to me, she would try reading to me, but it wasn't until she tried just lightly touching the inside of my arm. And that would just make my brain just almost pass out. And then as I got older, I would be watching Bob Ross's Joy of Painting. And his voice and the sounds of his paintbrushes on the canvas and the personal attention when he would turn and look into the camera. All of those just also turned my brain into this blissful state with these brain tingles.
Craig is a professor of biopharmaceutical sciences at Shenandoah University and the host of 2 ASMR podcasts, Sleep Whispers and Calm History. For more than a decade, he's been looking into the science behind ASMR, including that phenomenon we've already mentioned a few times, brain tingles.
Yeah, it's like sparkles. So tingles is the most common word, and others describe it as sparkles either on the scalp, they might describe it inside the brain, and it might just kind of go down their spine into the rest of their body also. So if you know what chills are, it's somewhat like that, except for chills tend to be much more on the surface where you feel your hairs kind of raise up a bit. But these are lighter sparkles.
So there are so many different kinds of ASMR triggers. You mentioned a few that have been part of your own experience. It's a combination of auditory triggers, visual, and tactile. What are some of the most common ones that show up for folks, and what are the things that unite all of these different triggers?
Yeah, whispering is probably the top trigger. And so there's been several research studies at which they've asked, what is your favorite trigger? And whispering has come up as the most, which makes sense because it also conveys the most personal aspect of someone else. But other triggers are tapping sounds, crinkling sounds, light touch, as you mentioned, and even kind of like slow movements, the way someone moves in a deliberate way.
So if someone gets a relaxing feeling, like I get a really relaxing feeling, even just listening to your voice right now, like I feel like you are ASMR. I'm feeling so relaxed, but I don't have any noticeable physical sensations or brain tingles. Is there a spectrum of responses to these kind of triggers?
Yeah, definitely. Some people do experience ASMR and some people don't. And even those that do experience it, you use the perfect word. There's a spectrum of responses. So some can feel deeply relaxed without brain tingles, and then some can have such strong brain tingles that they get overwhelmed. And I've seen it happen where someone experiences their tingles for the first time and their eyes just go buggy. They're like, what is happening to my brain? For some people that have never experienced the tingles, it could be because they just haven't found the right trigger. But there may also be some individuals who are just unable to experience tingles. And it could be a genetic reason, or it could be something environmental or cultural, something from their youth. Maybe they didn't have the kind grandmother with the certain type of voice that when they got older, it was more likely to trigger it.
Feeling relaxed yet? Survey data estimates that about 20% of people experience an ASMR response. And there's published research that gives us insight into why this happens. One of Craig's studies used a type of MRI machine to map activity in the brain while folks watched ASMR videos.
One of the areas that we saw light up was the medial prefrontal cortex. The important thing to us about that region is it's known to be rich in oxytocin receptors, which is also known as the love hormone. And this kind of fits with what we know about ASMR, because what normally releases oxytocin is moments of positive and personal attention, which is the core of ASMR. And then also oxytocin is known to stimulate relaxation and comfort, which is what people feel from ASMR. So our brain scan studies support the strong possibility that oxytocin is at the center of ASMR.
There have been some interesting studies also into responses in other parts of the body. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is that it's described as both kind of activating and relaxing at the same time. So your heart rate goes down, but you maybe start sweating more. Talk to me about that kind of dual response and what you make of it.
Yeah, definitely people describe it as relaxing, but there is also this slight euphoria or excitement to it. I think what's going on there is because you're having a positive, pleasurable moment with this deep relaxation, that there is a positive alertness associated with that. So it can help you to relax, but a lot of people have this slight euphoria and they just stay in the moment and enjoy that positive kind of euphoric moment.
I'd love to elaborate on this euphoria piece because before the term ASMR was coined, a lot of folks were referring to it as a brain orgasm. And I want you to kind of unpack that and some of the associations that have been made between ASMR and sexual feelings and what we know about the relationship between ASMR and sexual pleasure.
Yeah, in the early days when people were first talking about the sensation that we now call ASMR, and what they commonly used was the term brain orgasm. But what's clear to us today, and even if you look back at those old discussions, is that it's not a sexual feeling. People clearly who experience ASMR say it's not the same as a real orgasm. So that term was very misleading, and that's kind of in a way why the term autonomous sensory meridian response was developed. So it didn't mislead people to think that you're going to have this orgasm-like experience.
So you mentioned, we've been talking about this term being coined in 2010, and now this ASMR content is everywhere. It's kind of unavoidable on the internet. How did we get from a coining of a term just like 15 years ago to where we are today? Kind of brief history, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think the key first point was probably in 2009 when the first ASMR video was created.
So I couldn't really find any videos on YouTube of people whispering. So I thought I'd make a channel of whispering. So all you whisper lovers out there can listen to me. So we'll see.
And a lot of people watched that and they said, hey, I want to do this also. So now there's probably about 500,000 individuals creating these ASMR videos. Then in 2010, it got the official name of ASMR, which is what we call it today. But then in 2015 was the first peer-reviewed published study. And what that really helped with was validation. People weren't sure who didn't experience ASMR if this was real. And so when the research started in 2015, that helped with this validating feeling of, hey, this is something I experienced and it is real. And that led to a very fast growth rate in 2017 and 2019. And so it's continuing to grow, and probably because it is so effective for so many people.
Making my way over towards the other side, her left side, parting, then running the tool over the part.
If you were internet active in the early 2010s, you probably remember that huge ASMR boom. And the hype has not stopped. YouTube and TikTok are full of ASMR artists. And some of these folks are mind-bogglingly creative. YouTuber Josie B has videos like, "You're a roach and I'm doing your makeup," and "Mushroom decomposes you," both of which slay me. I won't ignore the fact that many of these videos seem very strange upon first glance. But spend just 5 minutes scrolling through the comment section, and you'll see just how many people love them.
I watch ASMR to relax or fall asleep. I feel like it really helps with my anxiety, and it just helps me calm down.
I listen to ASMR now when I fall asleep at night, or in the afternoon after a long or stressful day. It makes me feel like I'm part of a little community. Quiets my mind and gives me something to focus on so that I don't overthink things before bed. It makes me feel still and calm.
What I think is so cool about ASMR is that it makes you kind of focus on only one thing. And it can be like a small thing. It's like a simple thing that you can focus on, like the act of just brushing hair or tapping on an item that feels good. I think it's like the simplicity of that action, and that's the only thing that you have to focus on. It's kind of meditative, actually.
That was Em and Katie, two ASMR consumers and creators who you also heard at the very beginning of this episode. There are several different categories of ASMR. Some content focuses on auditory triggers like eating sounds, ambient sounds, tapping, and scratching. Others are more visual, like someone mixing paint or slicing through a soft object. And then there's personal attention role play, where an ASMR artist will get up close to the camera and make it seem like they're plucking your eyebrows or shaving your beard. A subcategory of role play revolves around medical interactions like physicals or scalp checks. And that's what creator Samita ASMR specializes in.
I'm going to palpate some of your lymph nodes while we're here.
Samita first learned about ASMR while working in a chiropractor's office, and soon she was deep in the content. She posted her first video in October 2019. It's 28 minutes long, and it's a first-person point of view where she role-plays giving the viewer an eye exam.
So, taking a look at your intake here, I see that you have a family history of glaucoma. Is that right? I see. Your grandmother? I see.
I was very curious to hear the story behind this particular video.
At the time, I was studying naturopathic medicine and I was learning specifically eye exams. And so I thought, well, this might be a good opportunity to start making ASMR, and maybe my first ASMR video can be this, since I have to review this content for school anyway. Why don't I set up, and at the time I was just using my iPhone camera. I set it up on a tripod and I bought a secondhand Blue Yeti, set that up, and I just did what I normally do when I'm conducting an eye exam, but towards the camera and the microphone. And then I posted it.
So you posted online. Your parents came across the video. How did they react? What were their first thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Yes. When they first watched the video, they were actually in China at the time. I was in Canada with my sisters. And they sent me a message and they asked, Samita, what is this video that you just posted? And they were worried. They thought it might have been something sexual. And I had to quickly reassure them that it was definitely not that. And I shared with them a few other videos that were similar on YouTube. And I explained to them this is more so for relaxation, for helping people sleep. And then I think they slowly started to understand what I was doing. Just take the time to take deep breaths in and out. I want to give you a scalp check, a scalp massage. Just take your blood pressure. There's touch. I'm just checking to see voices. When the video post is going. Sound.
So I would love for you to peel back the curtain a bit into how you create that kind of immersive 3D sound that makes it feel like you are standing right behind me. You are looking at my scalp. You're in the room with me. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I try to create a very relaxing environment to start. So I often will use warm tones, put together candles, and all kinds of relaxing little touches in my environment. And then I have my model in front of me. I set up the microphone and I turn the gain all the way up so that you can really hear everything. And I help to relax the model, do a little bit of light touch, and then we go on to the scalp massage and scalp check. I think a lot of it has to do with how much the microphone's picking up, but also people are channeling and tapping into the connection that I have with the model. And so that's kind of where you start feeling the ASMR, just watching our interaction as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking to Craig about the combination between kind of context and a particular trigger. Can you talk a bit about kind of the emotional context of this work and how you think about the design of the scenario to create that really comforting, nurturing feeling?
Yeah, so I kind of play the role as either a nurturing mother or a nurturing sister. And I think that's how my viewers also view me. They're used to my voice. They sleep to it often. And so their nervous system is sort of connected to my voice in a way that as soon as they hear my voice, they'll feel relaxed. And then they see the interaction that I have with my model. And it's as if I'm a mother or a sister, nurturing them, grooming them, paying personal attention, really being very caring. And so when they watch that interaction, they can also receive it.
That caring, nurturing vibe is not just useful for folks as a sleep aid. According to data collected by Craig and fellow researchers, ASMR content can also be helpful for folks with anxiety. The next step in understanding the therapeutic potential of ASMR is for researchers to compare it to things like medication or cognitive behavioral therapy. But I want to underscore something that Craig mentioned earlier. Not everyone responds to ASMR triggers. And there are some people who do respond, but instead of euphoria, they experience outrage and disgust. But why?
It's not too mysterious, meaning it's easily understood if you think of food. Like some people love raw onion, some people hate raw onion. So it is common for people to have different responses to certain triggers. Some people can react to whisper sounds or mouth sounds with deep relaxation, and we call that ASMR. If you react with a strong negative response, it has a term and it's called misophonia. It's not clear yet why some people react one way to the same exact sound in a positive way versus a negative way. So the mystery is there. It may be due to genetics, or it could have to do with an early life experience. It's not clear why people react differently yet.
Samita, in your own experience as a creator and as someone who consumes a lot of ASMR, what have you noticed about how your triggers have evolved over time?
Yeah, it really does change depending on what my interests are. So, for instance, when I was working at the chiropractic office, I really enjoyed watching chiropractic style ASMR videos. Later on, when I was in naturopathic school, I enjoyed watching massages and more medical style videos. And nowadays, I enjoy watching nature based and fantasy videos since I live out here on a farm and I'm being very creative and imaginative. I'm sort of delving more into that. So I think it really depends on what is happening in your life and what really matches your special interests in the moment.
Craig, the interesting trends that I guess I've been thinking about is how the rise in folks turning to ASMR has also paralleled all of these conversations about a loneliness epidemic and research and how loneliness is bad for our health. I'm curious about how you see those two things interacting. Like, is internet ASMR culture helping folks cope with loneliness? Is it making people more lonely because they're listening to ASMR instead of interacting with someone in their real life? What do you think?
The way I view it is it's supplemental. So if you're having a bad day and your best friend or your spouse isn't available to kind of cheer you up a little bit, then you can turn on an ASMR video at that moment and get into that relaxed state. So it's kind of like a multivitamin. It's sort of like a treadmill on a rainy day. It's there for you when you need it, but it's not going to result in you never going out for a real walk. It's just something that's helpful.
We've been talking about ASMR content as an internet phenomenon, but a lot of folks' first experiences are from in-person interactions. A parent rubbing your back, a teacher reading you a story. You've written a book that actually encourages folks to think more intentionally about how to bring ASMR into their own relationship, something you call partner ASMR. Can you talk about that and how we could invite ASMR more into our real life interactions if it's something pleasurable for us?
Yeah, anyone that's a parent is already doing this naturally, which is when you soothe your newborn or your young child by lowering the volume of your voice, by speaking more slowly, by showing caring expressions from your face. We're calling that ASMR triggers, but it's existed since the dawn of humans. So partner ASMR is about doing that more intentionally, about having awareness of that the next time your child is hurt and needs comforting is to use all that to help them feel better. And then also friends can do it after a hard day at school, or spouses after a hard day at work can use this. Or there's spas that are starting to open up in which they're using ASMR triggers in these spas, which help people to relax. And then the highest level of this partner ASMR concept is purposely using it for relaxation therapy, which is you may have high blood pressure and your health professional says, well, what we're going to try first is some lifestyle changes. And also I want you to go see this ASMR practitioner to help you lower your blood pressure. So there's things like that of doing this in real life, intentional ASMR to help people.
Samita, I'd love to close with you asking about this ASMR relationship piece. You have your parents in some of your videos. There's a video of you sitting with your dad, giving him kind of a mock exam. I'm curious about how ASMR and doing this work has shaped your real life relationships, like that one.
Yeah, whenever I have an opportunity to work with my family with the ASMR videos, mostly, my dad and my sisters, I find it really helps to bond us more because I feel really well supported when they participate in my videos, and they also really enjoy it. My dad loves ear exams and ear cleanings, and he'll actually request those, whereas my sisters enjoy scalp checks, massages, and back massages as well. And so, those are definitely ways that we bond. And even outside of filming, we also bond in that way with physical touch and personal attention, playing with each other's hair, that kind of thing.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Embodied. For an upcoming episode, we are talking about divorce and questioning the narratives we've inherited about the end of a marriage. We would love to hear your stories. Tell us, what have you learned about yourself through sharing your divorce story? What narratives around divorce do you hope to challenge or shed light on? Leave us a message on our SpeakPipe. It takes just a couple minutes to record, and you can find the link in the show notes of this episode.
Here's another show you might like. If you know, you know. Parenting is transformative. It's also pretty terrifying. I'm Emily Oster, the host of Parent Data. For the last decade, I've been digging into the data to better understand the questions that pregnant people and parents confront every day. Now I'll be talking about these issues on my podcast and interviewing experts to help parse out these questions, separating fact from anecdote, causality from correlation. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Embodied listeners, it's Cam and my wife Taryn from the Staying Up podcast. Don't you just miss the good old days?
Like when we couldn't get legally married?
Well, no, obviously not that part. But I mean, when you just have sleepovers with your best girlies all the time.
I mean, yeah, sleepovers are the best. You're staying up late, you're talking hot goss, and you pour your little baby heart out before maybe having a little moment under the covers.
Oh. Well, lucky for us, we get to do that every night. But once a week, we invite you to join in.
So tune in every week to Staying Up, where we drink up, cozy up, and stay up.
We'll see you there.
At this point in the conversation, we have been clear that ASMR is not a sexual response, and the vast majority of ASMR content is not designed to evoke one. But like anything on the internet, you can certainly find a more sensual, sexualized version if you search for it.
So happy you got home early tonight. We got to spend more time together.
That was the world that Australian filmmaker Laura Noyes fell into in 2017 after a bad breakup.
It was one of those breakups in your, mid to late 20s where you kind of feel like the world has ended. And I just, like everyone after a breakup, I felt incredibly lonely. I really struggled to adjust to simple things like there being nobody else in the bed with me and coming home to no cuddles and just not having intimacy in that way that I had really loved. And I knew about ASMR in the ways that most people do. Like I knew and enjoyed videos of people like having haircuts, and I turned to that just to kind of, I guess, fill that space and get that sense of someone being close to me. And then just through a lot of clicking suggested videos, I happened upon some very specific ASMR that was ASMR artists role-playing to be your boyfriend or your girlfriend or, any intimate relationship really, that because I was really missing romantic intimacy, that they were kind of like my rebound boyfriends.
In addition to making film, Laura's also a writer and producer, and she's the force behind the 2021 Audible original podcast, Pillow Talk. Over the course of 8 episodes, Laura documents her journey into ASMR content and digital intimacy, uncovering the good and the bad. At the very beginning of that journey, listening to ASMR boyfriend roleplay was a way for her to find connection without the heartbreak.
You know, all my friends were like, you should just get on Tinder or, you know, go to a bar and like find an actual rebound like a normal person. But that, I think, just was really scary for me. I found intimacy with real people to just be like a really high risk activity. So it was kind of this way that I could basically experience that with zero consequences and without anyone knowing. So the stuff I was listening to at first was, you know, really simple things like a guy like makes pasta for you and you watch a movie. And, you know, these audios can go for hours and there's like gaps in the audio so you can talk back and you kind of form these like parasocial relationships with these audio creators. But, I found other things too. Like I had some sexual trauma and there was audios I was listening to a lot that were, kind of like spicy, intimate sexual audios. But halfway through the listener, says that you want to stop and the voice on the other end is like, that's totally fine. I respect that. And the rest of the audio is you just like cuddling and like watching, Parks and Recreation or something.
So there's such a range in this world, and the vast majority of people who turn to ASMR are not listening for sexual gratification. But as you mentioned, there is a subgenre that kind of brings together ASMR techniques and audio erotica. And you say in the podcast that finding this genre brought you closer to your sexual self than you'd been in a long time. What did it help you discover?
Yeah, it was just an extension of, it took away a layer of vulnerability that kind of was holding me back. When you listen to an audio, there's no real human there to judge you. There's no one even watching you. It's just a voice in the dark. So you can kind of explore different parts of your sexuality. You can explore different kinks. You can turn it off the second it grosses you out or the second that it doesn't feel right. It's immersive auditory erotica.
Can you talk a bit more about that parasocial relationship that begins to form and some of the creators who had the most meaningful impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone relates to the experience of listening to a podcast and kind of feeling like the podcaster is your friend. But the difference with an ASMR artist versus like most other celebrities is that they're like pretty accessible people. Like they're just people on the internet. Some of them are kind of like influencers. But I ended up in a few like groups that were kind of like fan groups, I guess, where we interacted with the performers and they were our friends. And that was some really interesting dynamics because you're really hanging on to that person's voice as like a lifeline, but then having a totally separate relationship with them, as well as the fans. Like you're kind of all bound together because you're sort of lonely,
Yeah.
So in some ways it was really beautiful. I did kind of start living like a lot of my life on the internet. It was really kind of consuming and yeah, I'm not doing that now, but it was sort of an amazing Band-Aid for me for a while.
You did get involved in one very particular online community with an ASMR boyfriend experience creator who you later discovered preyed upon a number of folks in that community, including you. How did that experience inform your relationship with ASMR content moving forward?
Yeah, that was really upsetting. It's not something that I talk about too much now, and I feel fine now. But, you come into those spaces because you want to feel comforted and because you have kind of a wound that you're trying to put a salve on. That you can have that experience in real life as well. ASMR and the internet is that's just people. It's another place where you meet people, and some of those experiences are good and some of them are not good.
How did your relationship with certain types of ASMR change? Like, are you still interested in the boyfriend experience ASMR? What kind of ASMR do you listen to?
Now I don't listen to any role play, actually. I get that from my real friends and, or from all my loved ones. Now I listen to just the sounds. I love goo. Big fan. big fan of goo and slime. I can watch that get munched up in someone's hands for a long time. I love the hairdressing. I love, actually, you know what's so ridiculous is that when the intimate relationships, by humans shifted from something that felt really beautiful to something that felt quite dangerous, I got really into ASMR with animals. So there's like these ridiculously cute ASMR videos of like cats going to like a spa and like getting a massage, and they wear like these tiny little robes, and or just like dogs eating strawberries or a watermelon or whatever into a really good microphone. So so now I purely listen to it in a relaxing way.
I'm going to have to search those out. I'd love to end with just hearing about kind of how ASMR shaped your overall relationship with your physical body, because it's such an embodied experience to listen to ASMR. It's so immersive. How would you describe how that has evolved for you?
Yeah, the funny thing is that when I first started listening to it, I wanted to not have a body at all. If I could have become like form of steam and just like taken off my body like a wetsuit or something and just left it on the floor, I would have done it. I didn't like being touched by real people. I was very deliberately searching for intimacy in a way that wasn't tangible. Kind of weirdly, it allowed me to kind of connect to my body and my, sort of sensual self in a way that I couldn't do with a physical person, because I was constantly watching myself through their eyes. I'm sure lots of people do this when they're having sex, right? Like you're going, oh, how do I look from that angle? And like, maybe I should have like shaved my legs because they're a bit spiky. Like it just completely removed all of that. And it let me just enjoy what my body felt like and the experience of being in it, and to imagine someone touching it in all these ways where I didn't judge myself. So in that way, it was an incredibly healing tool that I just found. Like, you don't have therapists recommending ASMR, although I suspect that like Dr. Craig Richard will possibly get that, push that through. I think that it is a tool that can absolutely be more researched, because I think that for people with trauma, particularly, relationship or bodily trauma, it is such a wonderful under-researched tool.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Embodied is a production of North Carolina Public Radio WUNC, a listener-supported station. If you want to lend your support to this podcast, consider a contribution at WUNC.org now. A big thank you to all of our guests today, and a special thanks to ASMR artists Em and Katie. Today's episode was produced by Gabriella Glick, who enjoys whispered facial treatment videos featuring bubble sounds, and edited by Amanda Magnus, who loves ASMR tapping videos. Kaya Finlay and Paige Miranda both also produce for this show, and they are big fans of slime sounds. Skylar Chadwick is our intern, and Jenny Lawson is our technical director. And they both say that almost all ASMR content makes them cringe. As always, Quilla wrote our theme music. I also have to take a second here to say a very bittersweet goodbye to the producer behind this episode. Gabi has been with us since last fall, and we are so sad to see her go. She's taught all of us so much about sound design, and you've heard some of her beautiful work in episodes like this one, our AI series, and more. She's incredibly thoughtful, a really hard worker, and has a kind of creative and editorial mind that is such an asset to a team like ours. Gabi, we will miss you, but we can't wait to see what you get up to next. Until next time, I'm Anita Rao, someone still searching for those elusive brain tingles.